My cousin falsely accused me of sexual assault, and now my family is finally contacting me after almost 10 years. I grew up in what was probably the most normal of normal households. My parents worked a lot, but still managed to care for me and my 3 older sisters. We were never super close as a family but never had any issues either. The same goes for my extended family. They always lived a few hours away, but we saw each other during summer holidays or Christmas and always got along great. As we got older, we naturally grew apart as everyone had their own lives. I'm 31 now. In 2014, when I was 22 and attending university, I got a phone call from my mother that turned my life upside down. I remember I didn't answer it at first because I was gaming with friends, but she called again immediately after the first call. In our family, this was an unwritten rule: if you call twice like that, it's important, like someone died important. So when she called again, I excused myself and answered, only to hear chaos on the other end, like people were arguing. When my mom realized I had answered, it sounded like she went to another room and closed the door. I asked what was going on, and I heard she was crying. My memory of this conversation is a bit blurry, but she basically asked me if I had something to confess regarding E. E is my cousin on my mom's side and is 7 years younger than me, 15 at the time. I hadn't even seen E for several years. I just said no and asked what this was about. She cried even harder and started accusing me of sexually assaulting E back when we were children. E had told everything to my sister, who then told my mother and my aunt. E claimed that back when she was 9 and I was 16, she had been playing in my room when I came in and started feeling her under her clothes and kissing her. My mother screamed at me to say something, but I couldn't even speak. It was so absurd. I remember thinking this must be some bad joke. The last thing I remember saying was that it's not true, and that E is lying. But then my mom went on, saying how E gave such a detailed description of where and how. She kept asking, "Did you do this? Did you do this?" And I just screamed back at her, "No," each time. It all ended with my mom putting me on speaker, and both my mom and dad saying they don't want anything to do with me and never to contact them again. 2 of my sisters texted me later that day, pretty much saying that I'm disgusting, and then they blocked me. I know it's weird, but after that call, I went to have a long shower. To this day I still don't know why I did that. After calming down, I started calling and texting everyone, even E. No one answered, and the ones who hadn't blocked my number by then quickly did so. The only thing I heard back was from my father, who texted me to stop contacting them, and that they needed to heal. That was 9 years ago, and I haven't spoken to anyone in my family since that day. To say this messed me up is an understatement. I was living in a haze for weeks after that, and hardly ate at all. It didn't help that this was right before I was supposed to defend my bachelor's thesis, and was already stressed out. Luckily, my co-writer sensed something was up and saved me by controlling the conversation so that I got the easy parts. Without him, I'm sure I would have failed. Needless to say, no one came to my graduation. Then started the worst period of my life. I spent the first year expecting the cops to knock on my door and arrest me for sexual abuse. I didn't land any jobs and just lived off my savings. I drank a lot, and became very resentful and violent. The only reason I didn't hurt anyone is because no one was around. My neighbor called the cops on me once after I had smashed a glass, but I managed to convince the officers that I had just dropped it, and they went away since there were no others inside my apartment. Instead of sleeping, I spent my nights planning how I could hurt E and make sure no one ever found out, even thinking how I could actually do the things she'd accused me of, but much worse. I'm not proud of that. I landed my first real job in my field in late 2015. Only then did things start to improve. I focused all my time on my job as it gave me something normal to do. Recovery was a slow process, but I drank less and smiled more. I lived cheaply and earned good money, so I made a point of buying myself a nice gift for my birthdays: a VR headset, a motorcycle, Lego, etc. Last year I moved from my crappy apartment and bought a small house. It was an old dream of mine to have my own garage and a garden to care for. This has boosted me even more. So my life is okay now. I still have problems. I've been on antidepressants for the last few years, and while they help, it's not in a happy way. They simply remove the dark thoughts and replace them with dead ones. My trust in other people is close to non-existent. I've tried dating but only been on 2 dates with 2 different women. It's really hard to speak like a normal person when it comes down to it. And what would I tell a potential partner when she asked about my family? "Oh, you know, they accused me of a heinous crime, and we're not talking anymore, but I didn't do it. I swear my field is very male-dominated, so the only woman I really speak to is my therapist, who I like a lot." A few days ago, I received a text from my mother. It felt unreal, and I was scared to open it at first, so I just stared at the notification for hours before opening it. Yesterday, a second text followed. Translated, they basically say, "Hi, my name, it's been so long since we talked. We miss you and want to know how you're doing here." She writes a long text about my sisters and how my nieces and nephews are getting big. I didn't even know I was an uncle. Know that we love you and always will. Love, Mom and Dad. The second text said, "Hi, my name, we understand if you don't want to talk to us after what happened, but please listen. Last month, the subject of you was brought up at a family gathering. During this, E was downplaying everything that had happened to her. It got so awkward that she finally admitted that nothing happened and that she probably just dreamed it. We were all appalled by this. When we last spoke, we wanted to protect E and did the only thing we thought we could do. We know that's not excusing how you were treated. What E did was wrong, and we're all angry at her. We have called everyone that knew and told them the truth. We all want to speak with you. And your sisters want you to meet their families. Please write back if you can find it in you to forgive us. Love, Mom and Dad." So yeah, that's my situation right now. I haven't answered, but they no doubt know I've seen it. Truth be told, I'm seething. So many old, painful memories are now stirring again. I don't want to forgive them, and I wouldn't trust myself to be in the same room as them right now. Part of me wants to call my family and unleash everything on them, to guilt them with everything I went through, until they all hit rock bottom. Then dedicate my life to making my cousin's life as miserable as possible. The other part wants to ignore them, and continue with my okayish life with my motorcycle and my garden to keep me company. I don't have any friends, the only people I speak to are my coworkers, but we're not really close. I've called my therapist clinic, but they told me she's on vacation and won't be available for weeks, and I don't want anyone else but her. So that leaves internet strangers. Please, where do I go from here? Do I ignore them and continue as is, or do I answer? And if so, what do I even write? I'm pretty sure meeting them in person would be a bad idea for the foreseeable future, but I'm not even sure how my life can improve from picking up those old threads. As embarrassing as it may sound, I've dreamed about the day when they apologize, about them throwing themselves to the ground and kissing my feet. Texting seems so anticlimactic now. But Part 2. My cousin falsely accused me of sexual assault, and now my family is contacting me after almost 10 years. Part 2. It's been around 3 months since I last posted, and a decent amount has happened, some for the better and some for the worse. For one, E is still a huge jerk. About a week after my family sent me the messages, she also reached out with a huge apology text. When I received it, I couldn't believe my eyes. She was talking about how she had mental problems and had been dealing with them for ages, almost as an excuse as to why she did this to me. She said she needed help, and her parents were helping her get it. This seemed like BS to me because all my life, I knew E as a beaming, radiant girl, until that dreadful day in 2014. The whole text felt like she was just feeding excuses as to why it happened, and then ending it off with the shortest actual apology. My original plan was to go on with my life and try to slowly make it better and better, but seeing this pushed me to my limit. After receiving that message, I decided to send my parents a response to their original text. It went along the lines of this. "Hi Mom and Dad. Meg. I appreciate you reaching out to me after all this time, but an apology won't cut it. What he did was malicious and a complete lie. You know I did nothing of the sort, and you chose to believe a little girl's word, without even considering me. For months, I had no one to support me and had to go through the hardest times of my life alone, and it was all because you never gave me a chance to explain myself. You all blocked me out of your lives, and now you're just supposed to come back. I can't live with that, and I don't think I can live with the fact that E just made up some nonsense about a cousin she didn't even know well at the time. I don't think I'll be able to talk to you all anytime soon, and maybe not ever. I have to go on with my life, and I can't do it with this burden and trauma weighing me down every single day. Take care of yourselves and don't contact me again. My name." I guess it wasn't the nicest message, but I couldn't deal with it. I knew they'd be shocked when they saw it, but I didn't care. E had the audacity to lie about the worst possible thing, and my family believed her over me. I couldn't handle that. A few weeks passed after sending that message, and I felt better. I had a therapy appointment lined up, and things were going well. I still took my antidepressants, but they weren't helping as much. After about 2 weeks, I got another text from my mother. She talked about how she understood where I was coming from, and that the whole family was sorry for not giving me a chance to explain myself. She said that she'd give me all the space I needed, and that when I was ready, they'd welcome me back into their lives with open arms. She said E was getting treatment, and that she was feeling better, but it still didn't feel right to me. I showed the texts to my therapist when I finally had the appointment. She understood my feelings and how I wanted nothing to do with them, but she also made me realize that if I completely shut them out, I'd never be able to heal fully. She said that I should take my time and let my family know how I felt, and that when I was ready, I could decide whether or not to accept them back. She advised me to write a letter to E, expressing how her actions had affected me and how I felt about her apology. She said it didn't have to be sent right away, but it might help me process my emotions. Writing that letter was one of the hardest things I've ever done. I poured all my pain, anger, and frustration into it. I told E how her lies had ruined my life, how I had lost trust in people, and how I had spent years in a dark place because of what she did. I didn't hold back. When I finished, I felt a strange sense of relief. I didn't send it, but just having it written down made me feel like I had taken a step forward. In the meantime, I focused on my job and hobbies. I spent more time in my garden and started a new project in my garage. I even joined a local motorcycle club and met some new people. It was nice to have a sense of community again, even if it was just through shared interests. I started feeling a bit more like myself again. About a month after writing the letter, I decided to send it to E. I didn't expect a response, but I wanted her to know how deeply she had hurt me. To my surprise, she replied a few days later. Her message was long and heartfelt. She didn't make any excuses this time. She admitted that what she did was wrong and that she had no justification for it. She said she was truly sorry and that she was willing to do anything to make amends. She even offered to meet in person, but I wasn't ready for that. I forwarded her message to my therapist, and we discussed it in our next session. She suggested that I take things slowly and only do what I felt comfortable with. She reminded me that healing is a process and that it's okay to take my time. I appreciated her support and decided to continue focusing on my own well-being for now. It's been a few weeks since then, and I'm still processing everything. I'm not sure if I'll ever fully forgive my family or E, but I'm starting to see a path forward. I know that I need to prioritize my own mental health and happiness, and that means setting boundaries and taking things one step at a time. For anyone going through something similar, I want to say that it's okay to feel hurt and angry. It's okay to take your time and prioritize yourself. Healing isn't linear, and it's important to do what's best for you. Surround yourself with supportive people, even if they're not your family, and don't be afraid to seek professional help. You deserve to heal and to find happiness again.